Hey everyone, it's Mason and you're listening to Herb Rally. Today's episode is yet another edition of the Herbalist Hour, and this time we're welcoming back KP Khalsa. So the first time I interviewed him, I had the pleasure of getting to hang out with him in person. This time we had to settle for a Zoom. Nonetheless, it's a fantastic conversation. We cover a lot of topics. Well, KP covers a lot of topics because he has over 50 plus years in the herbalism field. We chat about what the general public needs to know about herbal medicine, some lesser known herbs that really deliver, less understood tips for success with herbal medicine for professionals and clients, and a whole lot more. There are many takeaways in this one, and if you're unfamiliar with KP's work, you're really in for a treat. So I always love his sense of humor, and just his general approach to herbalism. If you'd like to get more background on KP, you could listen to episode 47 of the Herbalist Hour, and I will leave a link to the YouTube video in the podcast description. If you'd like to learn more about KP and his work, you'd go to his website at internationalintegrative.com. So big thanks to KP for joining me on the show. Also, before we get into the show, I'd love to shout out and thank our sponsor for today's episode, and that is Oshala Farm. So if you've been listening to the Herbalist Hour for some time now, you know that Oshala Farm has always been big supporters of Herb Rally and the Herbalist Hour. And today I'd like to highlight them for becoming Regenerative Organic Certified. So this is an actual certification where it integrates 3 foundational pillars. So number 1 is soil health and land management. That's promoting practices that restore and enhance soil health, increase biodiversity, and sequester carbon. Number 2, animal welfare. That's ensuring humane treatment of animals with access to outdoor areas, natural diets, and stress-free environments. And they say, note, while Oshala Farm does not raise animals, we fully support and adhere to the ethical standards set for animal welfare within the ROC framework. And then third is social fairness, upholding fair labor practices, equitable wages, and safe working conditions for all farm workers. So I'm honored to know Jeff and Elise Higley, who are the owners of Oshala Farm. Just always super impressed by everything that they do and how they do it. So getting this regenerative organic certification comes as no surprise to me. I always have known that they do everything the right way. Just really proud and thankful for them supporting the Herbalist Hour. So if you, dear listener, are looking to buy high-quality organic herbs or other organic goods, please check out Oshala Farm at oshalafarm.com. Let them know Herb Rally sent you. Let them know Mason sent you. And we really appreciate it because when you support them, you're also helping support Herb Rally. Thanks to Oshala Farm for sponsoring today's episode. Thanks to y'all for listening. Oh, one more thing. Got to shout out and thank another Apple Podcast written 5-star review. So this one comes from Beige MC from Canada. Shout out to our Canadian listeners. And they say, top notch. I love this podcast. It has a wide array of topics ranging from frugal living to diving deep into learning about the liver. The content has helped me gain a deeper understanding of herbalism and wellness. They feature highly respected herbalists and guests and even take you on botany walks. It's all here. Big smiley face. Thanks, Beige MC. Love this review. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave it. I know you probably got a busy day and you decided to take the time to shout us out and help us out in the Apple Podcast rankings. So love it. Thank you so much once again. And that's going to do it for me this time around. Enjoy today's episode with KP Khalsa. If you made it this far in the intro, let me know. You could always shoot me an email, mason@herbrally.com. Always love hearing from you. And that's going to do it for me today. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today, I'm really excited to have on KP Khalsa for the second time on the show. Welcome to the show, KP.
Hi, Mason. Good to be back.
We'll start it off by me reading a bit of your bio here. I don't usually do this, but I felt compelled to this time. So KP is an herbalist, nutritionist, yoga teacher, and educator who has been making holistic health approaches palatable to the modern mind for over 50 years. He was the first person to be professionally certified in both herbalism and Ayurveda in the U.S. He is president emeritus of the American Herbalist Guild and director emeritus of the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. And I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that before the show, I actually had to look up the definition emeritus because I'm like, I'm pretty sure KP's not the president of the AHG anymore. So it means that you're the former president.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Learned
you're
something
the
new every day.
first person interviewer that's pronounced it correctly, emeritus.
Oh, I'm proud of myself. All right, how are they
Yeah.
usually pronouncing it?
Yeah, every other thing but that.
Emeritus. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a strange word. Okay, I like it though. All right. So to learn more about KP and all the extensive classes that he has to offer, you could go to internationalintegrative.com, and we'll get into some of those courses later in the conversation. But for now, we're gonna kind of keep this interview as like a kind of like a Q&A with KP Khalsa. We've got some prompts from you and your team, as well as some guest questions from the Herb Rally audience. So why don't we kick it off with what does the general public need to know? Actually, before we get into that, if you want to learn more about KP as well, in episode 47 of the Herbalist Hour, we kind of go into his background and story. So yeah, we're going to do more of a Q&A round with KP this time. So all right, let's get into it. What does the general public need to know about herbal medicine that they do not?
The general public is very confused about herbal medicine. When I started 52 years ago, it was during the hippie times, and people were very experimental and they were willing to try just about anything. And they actually were quite serious about these ideas and really dug into it. Today, the vast majority of people who are looking for help with herbal medicine tend to be older. So, in the baby boomer dynamic, they've been taking care of themselves with conventional medicine for their entire adult life. Now that's failing them, and they want to use herbal medicine, but they have a generally positive outlook for it, but they don't know anything about how to use it, what it's for, various preparations, doses, and they're used to medical doses. If you see a pill of, let's say, someone's blood pressure medicine, it's the size of a lentil, and they take one a day, and that's what they're used to, and that's what they think it's going to be. They don't realize they're going to slug down a big bowl of herbal mud or whatever. So what they need to know is that herbal medicine is dynamic, dramatic, and effective. It actually really delivers. It works very, very well, but you have to do it in the proper way. Dose is the biggest problem with our modern clientele, but then all these various preparations. So people need to understand that there are advantages and disadvantages to various preparations, and they need to do the arithmetic. The information about herbal medicine, even frankly in books, not books by the people that you interview, but the general public are reading, and then the internet, it's just full of nonsense. And doses and preparations are not taken seriously, and people don't convert one to the other. They don't know the arithmetic, they don't do the arithmetic, or they assume it doesn't matter. So they're trying to someone suggests an herb in capsule form, and they try to take that in tincture form because they think that would be a good idea. Maybe that herb doesn't work as a tincture. They don't understand the dose conversions. So somehow people have to be educated about that, and that's up to professionals like us to train them. People have to realize, though, that this is not a hobby. It's a serious medical practice, and if we're looking to get actual good results with people, which we can, they have to treat it seriously and take it as seriously as their conventional medicine.
Would you say it's one of your missions of your work to kind of promote this idea that this is actually a serious topic, clinical herbalism, and it's not just some sort of like hippy dippy mode of healthcare?
Well, very much so. And it's interesting that you mentioned hippy dippy because in the hippie era, people were much more serious about it. There were very few people who were interested in it. It was a tiny fraction of people who I could, influence, but I was able to carve a career out of that small group. And those people have been my clients ever since for 50 years. They started out there 20, now they're 70. But the general public doesn't understand the connection. So we have a whole bunch of ideas about herbal medicine in our culture that are cause cognitive dissonance. It's super powerful and can hurt and poison you, and yet it's not powerful enough to do anything. You have to wait a long time to get results, but you only have to take a tiny bit, 3 drops of tincture, or 1 capsule, like it says on the jar. It's just chaos. So I think people would like to take it seriously, but they just don't know what kind of information. Every company says on their jar to take 1 capsule a day. That's just ludicrous. And that's because of their fear of liability, not because they actually think you're going to get results. So commercial manufacturers, by and large, are more concerned that you don't have a negative reaction than that you don't have a good reaction.
I was actually going to bring that up as I was mentioning to pre-call. I was listening to your interview with Rosalie De La Forêt on her awesome podcast, Herbs with Rosalie, and you said something to the effect, which is what you just said here. Herbalism can be viewed as both powerful and dangerous, but also mild and effective. And it just really rang true for me when you said that. And sometimes, I'm now living in Wisconsin, where there's definitely herbalism out here, but it's not nearly as saturated, I want to say, as like, say, the Eugene, Oregon area, which is where I'm from originally. How would you go about explaining, or like giving me advice to explain to your normies what herbalism is? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Well, you have to seek out sources of information, whether that's websites, books, podcasts, whatever it is, from people who are authoritative. But it's very hard to figure out who those people are. A medical doctor might call herself an herbalist, and she took a weekend seminar. Naturopathic physicians. I teach in 2 naturopathic universities, and I treat those doctors. I teach in the botanical medicine department and train them. But frankly, they're so overwhelmed by the 17 modalities that they're learning that very few of them concentrate enough on herbal medicine to actually make it work. They could, but it's not the usual situation. So most naturopathic physicians have to learn herbal medicine either concurrently, or they knew it before, or they focus on it afterward, but it's not going to be the main focus of their schooling. So just because someone calls themselves a natural doctor doesn't mean that they know very much about herbalism or can use it effectively. So we want to look at professional resources. So you mentioned the American Herbalist Guild, of which I was president recently. If we go to that website, you'll see some names that come up over and over. They have a list of recommended herb books on their website. Otherwise, the kinds of people who are being interviewed, the kinds of you read reviews of people's books and their work, and the same names for authoritative people, the same 20 names are just going to come up over and over. Those are the people you want to listen to. Blogs just repost over and over the same nonsense, and it's people that don't know what they're talking about, and they don't know whether what they're posting is nonsense or not, so they just keep repeating it, and we're just in this echo chamber now of nonsensical information going back and forth. So we can't do that. Anything is going to be better than that.
This is probably a rhetorical question, but I'm just kind of curious if you have any hot takes on herbalism books being written by being generated through artificial intelligence, because I feel like this is coming up more and more, where as opposed to people regurgitating information over and over via books or blogs, now it's being regurgitated through artificial intelligence. Do you have any takes on that?
I've never seen that at all so far, but we all know it's coming.
Right.
So, right. I mean, AI lies. We know that it's not to the place where it can distinguish good information from bad information. And the most of the information out in the general public is bad information because of that blog situation. And the people that are looking for it don't know the difference. And so they just assume, strangely enough, that it's all true. But for some reason in this area, people can read, well, I guess I was going to compare it to politics, but I guess there are people who read nonsense about politics and assume it's true too. But yeah, I mean, people would not look at mainstream news sources and just assume that everything they hear on the TV is true, but they're inclined to do that with herb blogs written by people that are not herbalists.
Fair enough. All right, well, why don't we transition to what are a few lesser known herbs that really deliver?
Yeah, I've got a long list here, so let me know when we've talked about this
For
enough.
sure.
I'll mention the first herb that I want to mention is an Ayurvedic herb, Pumi Amalaki. And let me say, I'll spell these things for people. Let me say that my practice is very mixed. I use herbs from all over the world, and I use theories from all over the world. So I coined the term very early when I first got started in this global herbalism.
Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy.
And my co-author of one of my most recent books, Michael Tierra, the founder of the American Herbalist Guild, wrote a book called Planetary Herbology. So we were both thinking about the same thing, at the same time. So Bhumi Amalaki comes from India. It's Bhumy. Then the next word is Amalaki. Bhumi Amalaki. This is a stupendous liver herb that folks here haven't heard very much about. The beautiful thing about this is that most liver herbs have the side effect of queasiness and loose stool. So Bhumi Amalaki is much less likely to produce that, yet it's stupendous for general liver function, but especially liver detox. Ayurvedic herbs historically were taken as powders, but many times now that powder is available in a capsule. So either way could work. Again, highlighting that not every herb can be taken in every form. So there might be Bhumi Amalaki tincture available. Somebody might be making it, but that doesn't mean that they know how to make it. It's never been made in human history. So a typical dose of liver cleansing herbs in general is the dose that is up to the amount that if you took more would make you have uncomfortable queasiness and loose stool. For most people, it's around 7 grams with Bhumi Amalaki. All right, so lavender oil, the essential oil of lavender, has been well known for a long time, but the idea that we could take that internally is a very new idea. This has been a real bump for my practice. A bunch of German research over the past 10 years started to look at taking lavender oil internally for anxiety, and boy, does it really work well. So you buy this, I guess you could just use lavender essential oil, good quality, and put it in your own capsules or something, but it's available encapsulated in little soft gels. They're only 60 milligrams. They're purple. And you take one when you feel anxious, and then you can take another one in a few minutes if you need more. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 6 of those tiny capsules a day is pretty good. But that's gotten a great response from clients. Calamus, which is an herb that's used in all of the big three systems, also really delivers. That's a brain herb. It's used in Ayurveda to enhance meditation, cognition, brain function. It treats seizures. I mean, just a all around great brain herb, calamus. So the thing about that one is that it's very nauseating, and we have to be very careful. So you want to start with about 250 milligrams of calamus and work up incrementally. And again, be careful. Most people can take about 4 grams of calamus, divided doses with food, and not have side effects. But if you and I took 4 grams of calamus just sitting here on an empty stomach, we'd be puking like crazy in 10 minutes. So we have to be quite careful with it. Lobelia, another, I guess I picked a bunch of herbs with queasiness, but lobelia, lobelia is well known to be nauseating. So that's primarily a lung herb, and then also it's a nervine or relaxing kind of remedy, and it does both of those things very well. So it suppresses cough. It is a bronchodilator, so it's beneficial for asthma. It works fast and effectively. This was so famous that it was starting in the early 1800s, became the signature herb of Western herbalism. It was the herb that everybody knew that herbalists used, and it was kind of the standard bearer. Anyway, that's easily available as tincture, and tincture is probably a pretty good way to use it because you can dose it very carefully. So you have to start with a few drops, work up gradually until you get the result you want for aiding breathing, or in fact, as a systemic relaxant, either one. And if you take too much more than that, it'll be nauseating. So you have to be careful there. Another lung herb, Vasaka. This is back to an Ayurvedic herb. It's Vasaka, Vasaka. I learned about this herb. I knew about it before, but I really learned the intricacies of it during the pandemic. It's a very famous lung herb. And in fact, the Indian government recommended that it be used for COVID symptoms. So I tried it. Boy, it really worked great. And I used it extensively throughout the pandemic. And now it's one of my top 5 lung herbs. I usually use Vasaka as a tea, about 30 grams as a tea. You would infuse that because it's the leaf that we're using. And that usually does not have any side effects at all, but people very definitely notice lung support, easing of breathing, and especially with respiratory issues like COVID or even just the flu. Another lung herb, bamboo manna. So manna is any kind of white, kind of neutral, more or less tasteless edible substance. So this is the dried sap from the inside of bamboo. You know, bamboo has those chambers inside. So when bamboo dies, they split it open and it's full of dried sap, very easily available out there in the herb world. This is in the top 3 cough suppressant remedies in the world.
Wow.
So we don't always want to suppress cough, but when we do, it will just shut off cough just like that. So that can be taken. It's often taken as powder. You put powder in your mouth and let it kind of trickle down your throat. That will be helpful. But otherwise, you can just take it orally and swallow it. Typical dose there is about, let's say, 5 grams, maybe in the 5 to 10 gram range. Again, just shuts it off. Amazing. Another one, Google. This is an Ayurvedic herb as well. Guggul. It's a very famous dried sap, again, from this desert bush. And you can just shop for Google. Google actually means dried sap in Sanskrit. But when we just say Google with no other qualifiers, we mean this particular tree. And this is fantastic for lowering blood lipids. There's a lot of controversy in the science about how well it works, but clinically, I've just seen it to work very, very well. It lowers cholesterol rapidly, cholesterol and triglycerides, and it's available in capsules. So typical dose is around maybe 7 grams, but the results are dose dependent. So the more you take, the faster it works. If you have very high cholesterol, uh, 250, 275, 300, you can use up to about 15 grams. And you're talking, in 4 to 6 weeks, it's normalized. Just astounding, very rapid. Anyway, so that's a good choice. And then the final one on my list is a combination actually from Chinese medicine called Yin Chow, Yin, and then Qiao. It's Chinese medicine. It's kind of spelled in a funny way in Roman alphabet. Yin Chow. This is probably the most famous anti-cold remedy in Chinese medicine. It's got about a dozen herbs in there. But when COVID got rolling, we had a lot of contact with our colleagues in China to find out what they were doing. And of course, Chinese medicine is a lot bigger in China than it is here. And so they had millions of patients to experiment with. And patients were open-minded about using these things. So they found out that this remedy worked especially well. And during the pandemic, I used it extensively with great results. But it's every Chinese grandmother's remedy for treating cold and flu. It works very, very rapidly. Now, here we go back to dose issues again, because the dose of Yin Chow is available in pill form. The dose is about 30 grams. So that just seems like way too much for people. That seems like way too many pills. But in fact, you can take, let's say, 5 grams in pill form when you wake up in the morning with that kind of flu-like feeling. And you wait 20 minutes. If you're not feeling better, you take another 5 grams. And you just keep taking, let's say, 5 grams at intervals until the symptoms are under control. And then you just take the dose you need during the day for the symptoms to stay under control. For most people, it's about 30 grams. And you can wake up the next day without flu symptoms. Probably a good idea to take it at that kind of a dose for one more day just to make sure, but knocks it right out. Very well known, easily available. You can get it on Amazon. Just a stupendous herb. Anyway, that's a list of a dozen or so herbs that just really deliver. They do what they're supposed to do. And there's none of this sort of, well, it takes a long time for herbal medicine to work and, all that. So good luck to our listeners. Right? Those kinds
Yeah,
of things.
that was about a dozen, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I actually had a few thoughts. The first one you mentioned was Bahu Amalaki.
Yeah. Bhumi Amalaki.
Boomy Amalaki. That's not the same Amalaki and Triphala, is it?
No, but they're actually related. Bhumi means earth.
Okay.
So this is an amla tree that grows close to the earth. It's a little shrub that grows about as high as your waist. And in this case, it has similar constituents to the amla, but in amla that's in Triphala, we use the fruit, whereas this one, we use the leaves.
Okay.
So this one is more of a liver herb, whereas the fruit is more of an anti-inflammatory.
Okay. I guess second question was related to the lavender essential oil. That was really interesting. I've never heard of people really using it internally like this. And, coming from my Mountain Rose Herbs background, we're always like, never use internal uses for essential oils, unless under the guidance of a qualified healthcare practitioner. So I'm just kind of curious if you have any thoughts on the safety of using these essential oils internally.
Oh, sure. The reason that people say that is because of liability, and most essential oils could be misused. Most of them we don't take internally, although frankly, every herb that you take has essential oils in it. The question just is about the dose. So most of herbs that we use on regular basis have about 2% essential oils. Some like ginger, maybe a bit more, maybe like 6%, and something that's very non-oily like chamomile, maybe a 0.5%, but generally about 2%. So uh, the essential oil then would be 50 times the potency of the whole herb, and you could get into trouble really quickly. So rather than educate people about them, it's just safer to say don't ever take them. But there are a number of them that can be taken internally. Peppermint oil is perfectly fine to take internally. That's available in gel caps as well, like the lavender. Fennel oil, caraway oil, those are taken internally, and again, available in uh, gel caps. Rose oil can be taken internally. So there are a few of them that are safe to use internally, and that, in fact, we do use. People know that oregano oil is taken internally. That's marketed, and that some people take that as drops, but they have to mix it in with something else because oregano oil on your tongue, just one drop, is overwhelming. So that has to go in an empty capsule or a bite of mushy food, or there are capsules of oregano already prepared available. So there's a bunch of them that can be taken. You just have to know which ones. If it's in a pill designed to be taken, then it's fine. But otherwise, take a course in essential oils. Speaking about that, I have a course in essential oils that I'm delivering in May of 2024, which may be in the past when you're listening to it's being recorded, but it'll be available as a recording. I'm doing that with Stephen Horn, who is the president of the American Herbalist Guild before me. So
Okay.
that's a 3 evening course on everything you want to know about essential oils. And we'll go into all those details.
I'm really excited. I'm going to be interviewing Stephen Horn here in the next couple months. So I've never really had a conversation with him before, but I know, yeah, he's also got a quite the extensive background as well. Comment on the calamus. You told an amazing story in our last interview, episode 47 of the Herbalist Hour, about how you use calamus. I won't spill the beans here, but basically it has to do with a child beginning to speak. Just very powerful story, and I love bringing that one up. Also, speaking of classes you're teaching, you mentioned lobelia. I know I've seen this being promoted lately on your website. Is the smoking class, or smoking cessation class, I should say? Are you speaking about lobelia in that class at all?
I did not talk about lobelia in that
Okay,
particular class, just because of the nausea issue. It's
gotcha.
really, I mean, the folk name for it is pukeweed. It's really probably the most nauseating herb that we use on a regular basis, and
Yeah.
it's real easy to make a mistake there. And since I was talking to the general public about smoking, I was a little concerned that they were going to get turned off of the whole experience at the first time they used lobelia and puked all over the place. But it's an excellent lung herb, and people do use it to stop smoking. It has the active ingredient, lobeline, which is an alkaloid, is very similar to nicotine,
Hmm.
and it hits the nicotine receptors, and so helps people uh, just feel better as they're withdrawing. Let's put it that way.
Interesting. I want to say shout out to Herb Rally Schoolhouse member Diana for joining us. And speaking of which, Diana actually submitted a question ahead of time, and so I'll read that for you now. I had comments on every other herb that you mentioned, but we'll keep it moving
Oh
here.
yeah, go ahead, whatever you like. I'd love to hear those.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. So Diana goes or asks, my daughter has MS. She's 38 and was diagnosed 7 years ago with progressive MS, many lesions on spinal column and optic nerve. She runs dry and cool. You said in a previous interview you've had great success with treating MS. I'm a folk herbalist and she's willing to take my herbal concoctions. What herbs should be in her diet that I could grow or forage and make into formulas for her? Thank you for any information you could provide. And she also says, I know you can't diagnose, etc.
Yeah, this is going to be tricky to answer because I've been treating MS for a long time. I'm probably one of two herbalists who treat it the most. We know an awful lot about it now. We can get great results. The problem is that people's cases are quite different. Most people with MS are cool and dry, as was suggested, in terms of their constitution. It's a disease that affects people with that sort of metabolism. So I can recommend a couple, but the answer is much more complicated than we can go into in this kind of a situation. I have taught some classes on it. You can go to my school and take a look at recorded classes and see if you can pull out something there. The first herb is the herb gotu. Since my main expertise is in the area of neurology, um, I use gotu constantly. It's probably the best herb in the world for nerve rejuvenation. So it helps to heal nerves that have been traumatized, crushing injuries, any kind of nerve disease like we have here. Um, Nerve diseases caused by virus, all kinds of things. Gotu. That's Gotukola. It's a flimsy little salad vegetable, but it's just fantastic for this sort of thing. Because it's mild, we have to use a substantially high dose. And so 30 grams would be a typical dose as tea of the dried gotu. When we talk about herbs, we describe the dose in terms of the weight of the dried herb, and then you can use the appropriate amount of water, whatever you would like there. So 30 grams brewed into tea. So that's going to be many tablespoons of dried chopped gotu. Doesn't taste too bad, kind of like lawn grass. Most people are fine with drinking it. So there's one. Calamus is sometimes used. That's a very general brain remedy, and it enhances circulation to the brain. We know that. Guggul, which I mentioned here just a moment ago, is actually widely used in Ayurveda for nerve diseases, including MS. I don't use it so much for that. I think there might be other things that are better, but if you just even go to the internet and Google Guggul, you'll find a lot of Ayurvedic uses in that way. And then the myelin that's being degraded in multiple sclerosis is a fat. And so sources of healthy fat are going to be beneficial. I like evening primrose oil. That's given me the best clinical results, but probably you could use any other kind of dietary fat. I know very little about foraging in North America. I'm not sure what I could really suggest, so I'm not going to go down that road, but at least those are some things to get started.
And Diana, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. You mentioned Google a couple times now, and I have this memory of when I worked at Mountain Rose Herbs. I want to say maybe when I was in customer service or even in the marketing department. I remember you specifically requesting Google, or maybe we were out of stock or something like that. Do you know where you purchased Google? Like, where's a good spot for that?
Well, the issue is that Google has to be processed a little bit. When it comes out of the tree, it's harvested like maple syrup. Harvesters make a slit in the bark. It oozes out. The guy comes back around the next day, snaps off that blob of dried sap. But that's not what's taken internally. Ayurveda recommends not taking that internally because it's a little irritating to the tissues, which is a little vague and a little hard to describe. But Ayurveda specifically says don't take raw Google internally. It's got to be processed. So number one, you got to get the sticks and bugs out of it. So that's part of the process. But also, it's cooked in triphala decoction to offset its irritating characteristics. Then it's filtered to get rid of all that other stuff. And then it's allowed to dry in the sun till it dries down to a paste. That paste hardens, and then that paste is dried to powder. So the raw blobs of sap, people purchase that, and then it's like, what am I going to do with this? But what you want to get is purified Guggul, which is that dry powder. It kind of looks like coffee grounds. It's a dark brown powder, and that's taken either in capsules or tablets or just some way to get that powder in. So you don't want to use the dried sap. That when companies that were not experts in Ayurvedic herbs started to sell Ayurvedic herbs as people became more interested, they didn't understand the difference. And many Ayurvedic herbs are prepared in some way to make them ready for consumption. And companies didn't understand that if they weren't Ayurvedic specialists. And so we had a while there where there were some problems with it. I think everybody's figured it out now. I'm not too sure about which vendor is doing what, but just when you're ordering it, make sure that it's prepared, and then you'll be in good shape.
So triphala is not only a herbal medicine for humans, but it's also used as a purifier for the Guggul resin. Is that what I heard?
In that particular case, yeah, the triphala is used to as a processing aid, or the three herbs that are in triphala. In many cases, sometimes herbs are mixed with fresh amla juice, for example. All kinds of possibilities of ways that triphala is used. By far the most widely used herbal combination on planet Earth. And the three individual herbs in there are all used individually as well. So yeah, processing aid in many, many different ways.
It's amazing. I never knew. And Diana says, awesome. Thank you. So sounds like you answered her question. Well, let's get to another Herb Rally guest question from Teresa. And Teresa asks, as more people are caring for the as more people are caring for their elderly loved ones, what advice would you give to address edema in the legs and its frequent infections and pain? Thank you.
Well, depends on the cause of the edema. Generally, we use diuretics to treat edema, and those just move the water out through the kidneys. In elders, sometimes it's congestive heart failure, in which case that's a much more serious issue and which can be treated. I've treated it many times with good success. That's a bit complicated to go into here. I'll mention one herb that does treat congestive heart failure, and that's the herb arjuna. That's an Ayurvedic herb, Arjuna. That's a bark, and it's more or less identical to hawthorn berry. So many of your readers know about hawthorn berry. So either one, they're about the same gram for gram. They do similar things, but the dose has to be high enough to facilitate the heart to beat with greater force to be able to push the blood around the body effectively to grab that water and bring it into the kidneys. So one might consider, let's say, 30-gram doses as tea of either hawthorn berry or arjuna. But otherwise, we're going to use a diuretic. Simple dandelion leaf is likely to work really well. That's really well tolerated, easily available, tastes pretty decent. So you can consume that as juice. You can put the dandelion leaves fresh right through your juicer. You can eat them in a salad. Dried dandelion you'd use as a tea. Typical dose of dandelion is about 15 grams as tea. That's 15 grams of the dried herb cooked into tea. But you want to, with all these suggestions, you want to start with a smaller amount and work up gradually, because you don't want to have a situation where the person is overwhelmed with the diuresis and just has to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. If you give some people, if you give them 15 grams of dried dandelion cooked into tea and they drink the whole thing, they'll be in the bathroom every 5 minutes for the next 4 hours. So you want to just start with a small amount and work up, and divided doses throughout the day likely to work. But that's a good suggestion generally.
Thank you. Does the name Arjuna come from the Bhagavad Gita? Do you know?
Yes, exactly.
That's cool. Yeah, that was the protagonist, I want to say. It's been a while.
That's right. No, you're
Uh,
absolutely right.
awesome. All right, well, we got one more guest question from the Herb Rally audience, and this is from Amelia. And Amelia asks, I have a question for KP. I hear a lot of talk about perimenopausal women needing to balance their hormones. I prefer to work mainly with food as medicine, but I'm never sure how to tell which vitamins a woman is deficient in based on her symptoms, amenorrhea, mood swings, waistline, weight gain, etc. How does a woman know which hormones need to be balanced? How can you tell whether you're estrogen dominant, estrogen deficient, progesterone dominant, etc., and figure out whether things like Vitex, Evening Primrose, or DIM can help you in your situation?
Uh, yeah, it's very tricky. The really the way to do it is just by blood tests. I think that the questioner is implying that she doesn't want to use blood tests, but that's a way to go. Well, let's talk a little bit about liver congestion here, which is the cause of a whole lot of this. There are some herbs that are general hormone regulators. The idea that we can specify which hormone any given herb affects is, I think, we're not at that point yet. And so we see, for example, chasteberry, an herb that many people say is progesteronic, that is, enhances progesterone. The evidence for that is pretty spotty. So you have to get into some pretty serious education to figure all this out. But the liver plays a big role here, and most of the time, women with hormonal imbalances, the trouble that they're having is with their liver. So the liver is congested. That is, not enough blood is able to pass through the liver fast enough to do what the liver needs to do. It's backed up in the circulation, congested liver. We have to treat that, and we use liver cleansers. So the liver is responsible for, number one, making cholesterol. All those hormones that were mentioned are made from cholesterol. So the liver makes cholesterol, and then that it spits it out into the small intestine, and then it's reabsorbed into the blood, and then goes to the gonads that make these hormones. And then those hormones travel around the body and do what they need to do. But then it's the liver that tears them down again. That's where the problem starts. And so the brain is trying to tell the liver and the gonads what to do to keep these things in balance, but they're having difficulty doing it because the liver can't tear it down. So the gonads are making estriol, progesterone, et cetera, at their regular rate, and those are building up, and then the liver is not tearing them down. So we use liver cleansers. The number one remedy for that in Chinese medicine is the herb buplurum. That's
Mm.
Buplurum, buplurum. Uh, Buplurum is a liver harmonizer, and harmonizing that action, treating the liver, is used in 80% of Chinese cases. It's just so overwhelmingly common that we can give just about anybody liver harmonizers or liver cleansers and expect to get some really nice results. That herb is very easily available out there in the herb marketplace. It's less likely to cause nausea than some of those other liver herbs we talked about. I did mention Pumiyamalaki earlier. That's an herb that could be used for the same purpose. But any generic liver cleanser like dandelion root or whatever there's dozens of them, is likely to work very well for that issue. So rather than trying to figure out which hormone is dominating and what you do about that, that's a very brute force approach, and it's difficult to make that work. Usually, liver harmonizing works better. So the buplurum, you can take that in capsules, and typical dose there is about 8 grams. Again, with the proviso that if you take too much, it might be nauseating. So you work your way into it.
So you continue to see clients. Do you and your practice use blood tests to inform
Yeah,
your
very much
practice?
so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you recommend it to other clinical herbalists as well?
of course. Yeah, learning about blood tests can be very valuable. In most states, people can order their own blood tests at a private pay lab. Not every state, but most. And you can go there and have them do whatever tests you want. So if your medical doctor is unwilling to order the test, you can just go do that. So basic hormone panels are inexpensive, easily available, and they measure all those hormones that were mentioned by the questioner.
Gotcha. All right, let's circle back to bamboo harvesting. Or the you said shoot. What's the inner layer of the bamboo?
Yeah,
What is
bamboo manna, the dried sap.
Yeah, I was curious about that. I've never seen that on the market. I was just kind of curious if are people actually harvesting to make medicine, or are they actually buying this from various vendors?
I've never seen anybody harvest it. Somebody is harvesting it
Sure.
in in Asia, but yeah, it's mostly made from the species of bamboo called large thorny, or maybe it's great thorny bamboo, and it's grown specifically for this purpose. It's huge type of bamboo that has a very large diameter, and they let them. I'm not sure if they let them die naturally or if they cut them down and then. But anyway, when you see people opening it up, the bamboo is already brown and dry,
Hmm.
and they split it right up the middle, and then you can open it up, and those cells will be full of white particles, and it's very easily available. You can get it.
Wow.
I would think Amazon probably has it, but from many Chinese vendors, it should be easily available. Yeah.
Very good. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, let's move on to KP. What are some disorders that you have recently begun to address that you're doing well with?
Well, we mentioned the MS, so that's something I've been working with a long time, almost 50 years working with that. So if you would have asked me, 20 years ago, how are we doing with MS? I would have said, well, we can make some progress. Now I'm saying we just do extremely well. So I have many clients that are out of their wheelchairs. So when they came to me, they were in a wheelchair, and now they're walking unaided. It's a long process. You have to do it carefully and consistently, but there's one. Migraine is something that also we've worked with for a while, but now we've really nailed that one. Migraine, we have a number of medicines that will abort a migraine when it's about to happen. We have medicines that will prevent migraines from happening if you take them consistently. And we have remedies that will cure it most of the time. So fantastic there. I consider migraine to just be, 99% curable, only in odd situations like where someone has a migraine because of a brain injury from a trauma or something, then we can probably suppress it. We may not be able to cure it. Parkinson's, we're just starting to get going with that. Parkinson's, unlike MS and migraine, Parkinson's is a disease of elders, and the the generation older than the baby boomers weren't interested in natural medicine, but now the baby boomers are developing Parkinson's and they are more interested. Although, again, the same problem we talked about earlier, they don't really understand what it's going to entail. They have difficulty with it's all so new. So there's a problem with adherence with people with Parkinson's. They don't want to take their remedies. They don't like the fact that they have to take so many, etc. One thing about Parkinson's that I've found is that I don't know why, but maybe it's just me, but it seems like people that develop Parkinson's have a certain kind of personality that makes them not want to admit that they have a problem. So many people have told me, I'm a busy person. I've got a business. I've got work to do. I can't be disabled by this disease. Well, I didn't cause your disability. You have the disease. We have to be honest about it and deal with it. And then they say, I don't have hours a day to make tea and count pills and all that. And for whatever reason, that seems to be kind of an issue. So anyway, all right. And then cognitive decline is something that we're getting much better with. I have a friend who's a or an alternative medical doctor who treats only Alzheimer's. And he says that he thinks we'll have cracked the code within the next 10 years. We're making great advances in the conventional medicine area and in the alternative medicine area. And as those come together, we're doing better. I can't say that Alzheimer's is curable at this point, but I think we know enough that we could slow it down. But there are many other types of cognitive decline that we can do very well with. Let me just mention one remedy here, which is again
Sure.
on my standout list. And that's actually a constituent that comes from an herb. It's huperzine A, Huperzine, huperzine, and then you want A. That comes from Huperzia moss, which is a Chinese medicine that's been used forever for cognitive decline. But Huperzia moss is a little bit toxic. So the scientists looked at that and said, can we separate the active ingredient from the toxic ingredient? They were able to do that, and they named that constituent huperzine, the best memory aid I've ever seen. So, baby boomers are all afraid of getting Alzheimer's because they've seen their parents have it. And every time they lose their car keys, they're having a wingding. So for baby boomers losing their car keys, huperzine A is excellent. Now, huperzine A also can cause nausea. I guess we're with the nausea theme today, but
Sure. Yeah.
huperzine, you get up around 800 micrograms and it starts to get nauseating in just about everybody. So you could start with, let's say, anywhere from 50 to 200 micrograms and then bump up the dose every 2 or 3 days until you get up to around 600. And if that's doing the job, if your memory is sharp, then great. But otherwise, if you want to try to push it a little higher, you just have to be a little careful because you're getting near the nausea threshold. Stupendous for cognitive decline. Not a whole herb. It's sort of one of these, green medicines, you could say. But I've just had great results with it. The best cognitive activator I've ever seen.
I couldn't remember the word metabolism earlier, and I was like, "Oh shit, it's happening." But I'm just kind of curious, based on huperzine A, is there a time or an age that you think people is there? Can you be taking it too early, or maybe once you hit your 40s, 50s, 60s, or?
Yeah, I think middle age would be the time to start. And you could use a maintenance dose of just like 50 to 200 micrograms. I have a colleague who's a conventional neurologist, and he doesn't care for any of this holistic stuff, but he gives every single patient huperzine A because he says it's good for everything. It bumps up acetylcholine in the brain, and that's the main neurotransmitter that's deficient in Alzheimer's and in cognitive decline in general, making and retrieving memories. We want acetylcholine. And having the brain have more acetylcholine is pretty just beneficial all the way around. But it's shown really nice effects on a whole bunch of other neurotransmitters. So probably pretty much good for everybody. Middle age probably would be the time to take it. I'm not having cognitive decline, but I do take a little bit just preventively.
Sure. Well, I'm turning 40 in October, so yeah, maybe now is the time. You mentioned all those topics earlier, and I swear, dear listener, KP didn't pay me to ask him this, but I'm just kind of curious. Do you go further in depth on all the various different classes that you have on your website?
Oh, absolutely. There are 300 recorded classes on
Wow.
my website. Most of them are 90-minute webinars. Some of them are considerably longer. In fact, there are some 3-month courses that are that are self-paced. So
Okay.
yeah, just about any subject that you've ever heard about dealing with herbalism, there is a course there, and you can go grab those. Just go to the store, search around a little bit. Pretty much anything you want to find will be there.
and that's internationalintegrative.com.
Right.
I'm just going to throw this out there. This is an incredibly selfish question for me, and I just had it right before we jumped on the call, and I was like, maybe KP has some input on this. So we'll just see. And I don't know if it's your area of expertise or not, but I'll just ask it anyways. So I've always had a, do you know what Osgood slaughter is?
I
Um,
do, but I don't know enough about it to have any clinical advice. I've never treated it. I've never studied it.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Basically, what's happening is I've always had some knee pain, and I'm going through this. I'm on a weight loss journey right now for the first time in my life. Um, I never really felt like I had to, and now I'm like, oh, I need to be kinder to my joints. So one way that I thought would be beneficial would be by losing weight. So far I've lost about 30 pounds. And ironically, I want to say, my joints have never been more painful. And I'm just wondering if it's because I'm like losing like certain cartilage or knee tissue or like fat that was used to surround it, or could be muscle loss, although I feel like I've been working out 5 to 6 days a week and I feel like I've never been stronger in my legs, frankly. So I don't know if you have any theories around that or we could just move on.
Well, one thing that I noticed happened with you is that when we first met, which was many years ago, you had hair on the top of your head and none on your face, and now it's reversed. So,
Yeah,
I,
exactly.
that might have been the effect of taking some herbs. Uh, yeah, so knee pain, well, it may be from lack of lubrication, that's for sure. And so again, that's going to be basically healthy fats.
Sure.
Uh, so you want to make sure to continue to include healthy fats in your diet, even though you're looking to lose weight. Otherwise, for knee pain, turmeric is for sure the number one thing to think of there. Turmeric and maybe ginger. So you could use any
Yeah.
combination of those two in any dose that you can tolerate. And of course, you could consider curcumin, which is extracted from turmeric. So that's the main anti-inflammatory component. I'm not quite sure what the nature of your pain is. If it is inflammatory, then turmeric or curcumin is a great choice. Now, Google, which we just talked about, Google is a really multifaceted herb, and the in addition to its lowering blood fats, the main claim to fame there is that it's anti-inflammatory.
Mm.
So Google is a one of the most aggressive and deep detoxifiers in all of Ayurveda. So you have that benefit. It's anti-inflammatory, and then of course it gets rid of the high blood fat. So that's worth a try for general joint kind of situation.
Yeah, I just got a primary care physician here in Appleton, Wisconsin, and he thought it was inflammation related. So he actually was prescribing me some sort of anti-inflammatory, and I'm like, I want to go more the herbal route, but
Yeah,
yeah, I need to
curcumin and Google. Yeah.
take higher doses of that for sure, and yeah, keep like you said this the beneficial fats in the diet as well. So, awesome. Well, let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah. KP, what are some, thank you for that answer, by the way. It's just been like, I've been wanting to ask an expert that for a while now. So you're the first person
Sure.
I've really consulted. So,
Yeah. Good luck with that.
thank you. So what are some less understood tips for success with herbal medicine for professionals and clients?
Well, the first thing I want to talk about here is loading doses. And this is something that was absolutely standard when I got into the natural healing area about 50 years ago. All my mentors used loading doses. They were very common. So that's where you use a high dose initially. Maybe you work up to that dose over a week just to make sure your body is comfortable with it. But then you use a dose that is in the high end of the dose range. You use that dose until your body is saturated and it's doing what you want it to do. You sustain that for a matter of time, depending on the herb, and then gradually you titrate down to a maintenance dose. That whole idea is just gone. So when we read blogs on the internet, the people writing these blogs have never heard of this idea, and there's a lot of fear and panic on the internet, and people don't understand this difference, and so people will write something like never take more of herb X than whatever dose X, and that suggestion is random. They pick some random dose based on some book they read or someone said, and they state the maintenance dose and then say never take more than this. The maintenance dose is great for the long term to sustain the results. I just was talking about the Google, for example. So I said you want to lower cholesterol rapidly, you're talking about maybe 15 grams, and that will bring very high cholesterol down into the normal range in often 6, 8 weeks. but then you don't have to keep taking 15 grams a day. Google actually is typically not taken um, over the long term because it's pretty aggressively detoxifying. So once it's done its job, you stop using it and switch to other things. But that's a loading dose. So if you're in a situation where, let's say, you have genetically high cholesterol and you're going to take some sort of a cholesterol lowering herb for the rest of your life, you bring the cholesterol down with the high dose of Google. And once you get it there, then you sustain it with maybe a gram or two a day. So this idea of loading doses, it's very hard to communicate this to clients because they are reading these blogs on the internet, and everybody Googles everything now, and people can't tell the difference between good and bad advice. So they push back and say, I read, so and so's blog, and they said never take more than, whatever. Vitamin D is another example of something that's often given as a loading dose. Many tens of thousands of units a day, but only for, let's say, a month. You saturate your body with that, and then you go down to the maintenance dose. Anyway, so investigating loading doses, people have even just stopped talking about it. I have a hard time recommending this to my clients because they have this pushback. All right, then understanding the difference of preparations. Not every herb can be used in every preparation. There are preparations on the market because the company's answer is that customers want it.
Right.
So, for example, Ayurvedic herbs and Chinese herbs have never been tinctured in human history. So we don't actually know how to make an effective tincture. There are some ways to figure it out. You can use some scientific testing to get you in the ballpark. But the way tinctures have been optimized in Europe, which is where they came from, over the last many hundred years, is by using them. So a manufacturer will make a batch of something in a particular way, send it out to a bunch of practitioners, get feedback, make some adjustments. And all this has happened in all of the systems over certainly centuries or millennia. And through consensus, they've figured out the proper way to prepare all these herbs, that we use. So astragalus for example, is a low dose herb. It's a mild herb. So the dose is going to be high. It's decocted in Chinese medicine, and we know it works that way. And we know that the active ingredients in astragalus are water soluble, but they're not alcohol soluble. So the equivalent of a typical dose of astragalus for rapid use is about 30 grams. So you're going to cook that up, drink the resultant tea, and get the results. The equivalent of that for typical tincture strength would be about 5 1-ounce bottles per day. Obviously, that's not reasonable, and it's way too expensive. And the active ingredients are not alcohol soluble, so it's not suitable to use as a tincture. Yet, astragalus is available as a tincture. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was using adequate dose, which I would say is the biggest problem with all of this. For whatever reason, the kinds of doses that my mentors were using 50 years ago are just no longer around. This sort of mass hypnosis that tiny doses are going to do something has infected our entire culture. And people, by and large, don't have success with herbal medicine. They talk to some high school kid at the health food store to get a recommendation. The job of that person is to sell product, not to really know what they're talking about. And then people look at the bottle, it says 1 capsule a day, nothing happens. And then they go to their doctor and get a drug. It's a tough situation to be in because we know herbal medicine works so well, but we need the right herb, the right quality of herb, the right preparation, and the right dose. The chance of all those things happening for someone who's just experimenting as a hobby is very little. And we see the kinds of results that people are getting. I'm talking about for serious illness are minimal. Yeah.
Such good food for thought there. And yeah, I'm just thinking of my experience taking astragalus tincture. It's just all I taste is the alcohol. But when you make a decoction out of it, it's like kind of like this sweet, woody, just tea. Like it's actually quite delicious, I find. And yeah, you could tell you're getting a lot more of that gentle medicine via the decoction than you would be the tincture. And like you said, what constituents are coming out in the alcohol. So really interesting. I've never really thought about it that way. So awesome. Well, we're about at time. I would love to, plug your school one more time. That's the International Integrative Educational Institute. And like we said, who knows when this will air? Probably about 2 to 3 months. So is there any like events or classes that are in the future that you'd like to promote?
Well, we have a class called the intermediate module for herbalism that happens every summer, and that's for people that have some basic training in herbal medicine. Our certificate program in herbal medicine to prepare people for the American Herbalist Guild credential is a 3-year program. So the intermediate module stands between the first year and the second year. So that's available for people. If you have any basic herbal training, you can grab that. That happens during the summer. Otherwise, most of our academic programs occur during the school year, and we take the summer off there. But the store, again, has 300 pre-recorded things on just about every herbal topic you could imagine. That's all there for the picking.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on the Herbalist Hour for round 2, KP. We'll have to do it again at some point, hopefully in person next time.
Sounds good. Enjoy Appleton.
Will do. All right. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you in the next episode. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Herb Rally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at Herb Rally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from Herb Rally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving text, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.